What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the Winnipeg Jets and their lineup going forward here as the playoffs are less than 20 games away now. We're getting down to the home stretch. The trade deadline is over. They've added Luke Shen. They've added Brandon Tanev. What does this Jets lineup look like heading into the playoffs, and what could they do to maybe maximize the talent that they have on roster? Now, the reason I'm making this video is for a couple of different reasons. The first one being, well, the Jets did not acquire a second-line center at the deadline, so Vlad Namestnikov will continue to be the Jets' second-line center. And the second reason I want to make this video is because the first line has really been together for the entire year. And while that's brought in a lot of good things to Winnipeg, it can also bring a lot of bad things when that line is being shut down. And that line gets shut down fairly often, right? I know everybody's going to look at the stats and say, well, look at them. Look how good they are, right? But one thing we have to remember here in Winnipeg is that first line has been together pretty much the entire year. That is not normal when you have the same combination, the same trio playing as much as they have been playing. They have over 300 minutes played than any other line together in the NHL. That is over 7 games of NHL hockey. That's more than 5 games worth of minutes that these guys have played together than any other trio in the NHL. And that's not really a normal thing you see. Like, I understand if your top line is your top line and they're rolling, but there's a lot of nights where, maybe the top line doesn't show up 5-on-5 and, that maybe they make up for it on the power play, but I feel like a lot of the deficiencies on this Jets team get covered up with how good the power play is. So we're going to get into this one. What could the Jets do to maybe make these lines a little bit more intricate, maybe have a backup plan going into the playoffs? First of all, I think there's a fun fix that you could do for the middle six, try it out a little bit. I think you can swap Adam Lowry and Vlad Namestnikov. We've seen what Adam Lowry can do with Nikolai Ehlers. There's instant chemistry there for sure. I mean, that line with Perfetti on the wing, Ehlers, Lowry, Perfetti, I think that's a pretty scary line. A lot of guys that can make room for themselves. Cole Perfetti, little shout out for him here. He has been just incredible the last about 15 or 20 games. He's really starting to grow in this league, and he's beginning to make more space for himself as well. So I think those three together could be a real problem. So then if we take a look at what the third line would be, then I'd have, Niederreiter, Namestnikov, and I guess it would be Appleton. I'd rather it be Iafallo, but, the team loves Mason Appleton so much on that third line, I guess it'll be him. And I don't mind this line for a couple of reasons. I think it's sneaky offensively. Obviously Vlad Namestnikov has been on the second line all year long. That's not really a mistake. He's got 30 points this year. He's been having a pretty good year, maybe a little bit snake-bitten as of late. Speaking of snake-bitten, Niederreiter, feels like he just cannot buy a goal lately. Need something to get these two guys going. Maybe they just need to play with each other. And hey, maybe that gets Mason Appleton going. Maybe that gets Alex Iafallo going, right? Whoever is on that wing. Maybe these guys just need to play with some different people, play with some different guys, and, just allow themselves to, play maybe a little bit differently. I think that's a good defensive line as well. I just think, there's a lot of positives to, trying different things in your lineup, and, when it comes playoff time, you're not really guessing. You kind of know what works and what doesn't work already. You have 82 games in a season to, move your pieces around, try different things, so I'd love to see the Jets do this here before the playoffs instead of, if something doesn't work, having it be panic time come playoff time, right? So you don't want that, but I definitely do think this is something the Jets should look at, especially given Namestnikov's struggles as of late and, 5-on-5 play not being at its highest peak here currently. But now if we go again, look at the top six. If the top line isn't working, I would love to see Nick Ehlers get some top line minutes, because this guy with some power play time now is a point per game player this year. He has been lights out, arguably been the Jets' best player since returning from the Four Nations break. And, Kyle Connor at times has been quiet since returning, right? He went on a bit of a goal slump. And yes, Kyle Connor's had a great season this year. I'm not taking that away from him. But, even if they want to play both of those guys on the first line, I don't see the problem with that. that. Probably doesn't work too well for the second line. But if you want to swap Ehlers and Connor, if the offense starts to dry up a little bit 5-on-5, I don't see a problem with that. I think you have to find different ways to put your lineup out there, and you just can't afford to be stubborn. Like, I know that top line has done great things this year. I know it has, but a lot of it has been on the power play. Like, that trio is very incredible on the power play. I'm not saying they're not, but 5-on-5, at times they're invisible. At times they get wiped, and if that line gets wiped, you know, you're relying on essentially Nikolai Ehlers and Adam Lowry to carry the load. And if they're unable to do that, then you've got a real bad night where the power play or Connor Hellebuck or both need to bail you out. And that's how the Jets have been winning some of their games this season, right? So you would love to see some of these lines be a little bit more effective 5-on-5 so the power play doesn't have to save the day. That's essentially the point of this video, but, you know, hopeful that the Jets can figure something out here if something does go awry, or as of late where we've seen maybe the top line hasn't been as effective. On the back end now, if we take a look at the defense, you know, Morrissey, DeMello, probably not changing. That pairing's been fine. Sandberg and Pionk have been a good pairing for most of the season, but it's been that bottom pairing, right? And we were hoping that it would get fixed, just like the second line center spot at the trade deadline, and I'm not really sure if it did, right? You know, they acquired Luke Schenn, but he's a right-hand shot, so, you know, we're still yet to see what the defense is going to look like. He has not played yet. So we're really hoping, you know, maybe this takes Stanley out of the lineup. Maybe one of Miller or Schenn can play their offside. Both have done that in their career. Miller more than Schenn. I'll have to add that there. You know, I'm not quite sure how comfortable Luke Schenn is playing on the left side. So we'll see. Even if you want to give Hayden Fleury a go with Luke Schenn, I don't see a problem there. But there's just really no reason to take Colin Miller out at this point. I think he's been fine. He's been tanked by the Stanley all year long. You know, just trying to play two defensive positions at once. It's impossible to do. I really like Miller as a bottom pairing guy. I don't mind him, you know, jumping up in the lineup with Sandberg either. I think that'd be fine at times if you wanted to try something like that out. But at the end of the day, you know, do anything you need to do to get Logan Stanley out of this lineup. I know people are going to be sitting there saying, oh, here you go again. You're bitching about Logan Stanley. I'm not. I'm just stating a fact. You cannot play that guy in the playoffs. We saw what happened against the Carolina Hurricanes, and I was getting like Vietnam flashbacks from last season, watching Nathan McKinnon, watching everybody blow by Stanley and score, right? That is what happened. Stanley cannot defend off the rush. It's a known fact. It's not me bitching. You know, if you want to spin it that way to protect your belief about Logan Stanley, if you want to die on the hill that Logan Stanley's an NHL player, then go for it. But that's not true, right? So I don't know what to tell you, but at this point, something's got to give. Luke Schenn is a monster of a man. And if they're looking for that kind of role, I hope that they find a way to, you know, put him in there and get Stanley the fuck out of that lineup. Because, man, Stanley and Schenn together, oh god. Overall, wanted to make this video for a few different reasons. The Jets were unable to bring in a second line center, so now they really do have to get creative, right? They can't just plug a Brock Nelson into that second line and call it a day and walk into the playoffs, you know, feeling confident. They have to figure out how to get things moving more effectively if they want to beat some of these better teams. Same on defense. I mean, there's really only one massive glaring hole on defense, and it's Logan Stanley. You really didn't address that at the deadline either. You did not add a left-hand shot defenseman unless they plan on playing Luke Schenn on the left, which I don't think they do. I expect Stanley to get a lot of minutes, you know, going forward here, or at least, you know, at some point to get some minutes, right? It's been hard-pressed to get him out of the lineup this year. Out of all the guys rotating this year, he has been absolutely the worst, and he's the only one that has not been scratched. So I don't really know what it's going to take to get Logan Stanley out of the lineup. We'll see how Luke Schenn fits into the lineup, and you know, if the goal is to get Stan out of the lineup or not. But that's really all I got. I just want to add one more thing here. For the amount of people that, you know, were coming after me saying that I'm just bitching for the sake of bitching, I'm bitching for the sake of this Jets team. You know, you can look at it with the rose-colored glasses all you want about what they added at the trade deadline. at the end of the day, they failed. That's what happened. They did not add a second line center, and they did not add an adequate defenseman to cover for Logan Stanley's miscues. They just didn't do enough at the trade deadline, and this video is pretty much just trying to figure out what they can do to, you know, maybe hide some of their holes or plug some of their holes internally, because what they did at the trade deadline was not good enough, and that is just flat out the truth. You know, adding Brandon Tanev is great depth. I like Brandon Tanev, not much more than a fourth liner. I like Luke Schenn. He's a fine bottom pairing defenseman, but at the same time, he does not play the left side, and I don't know if that really takes out Logan Stanley. And I kind of like Colin Miller more than Luke Schenn on paper. Maybe he fits better on this Jets team, I don't know. But it really feels like they didn't fill any holes. I know you need a ton of defensemen in the playoffs. I like the addition of Luke Schenn, but it just doesn't feel like the Jets did enough compared to some of the other teams at the trade deadline. But if you're going to pull the excuse out that, hey, no trade clauses and no move clauses are, you know, a big problem for the Jets, yes, they are, but there's only roughly, you know, 30-35% of the league that has no trade, no move clauses. There are ways to get around it. There were good players available that were definitely available to the Jets, and the Jets just simply did not, you know, have a thorough search. Brock Nelson got acquired by the Avalanche. They weren't expecting that, and at the end of the day, they did not have a backup plan. So take that how you will, but the Jets failed at the trade deadline and now need to plug holes internally. I'm done here, guys. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next one. Go Jets, go. Bye-bye.